Item 247. Flexible base. 1. Description. Construct a foundation course composed of flexible base. 2. Materials. Furnish uncontaminated materials of uniform quality that meet the requirements of the plans and specifications. Notify the engineer of the proposed material sources and of changes to material sources. The engineer may sample and test project materials at any time before compaction throughout the duration of the project to assure specification compliance. Use TEX 100E material definitions. 2.1 Aggregate. Furnish aggregate of the type and grade shown on the plans and meeting the requirements of Table 1. Each source must meet Table 1 requirements for liquid limit, plasticity index, and wet ball mill for the grade specified. Do not use additives, such as but not limited to lime, cement, or fly ash to modify aggregates to meet the requirements of Table 1 unless shown on the plans. Table 1. Material requirements. 1. Determine plastic index in accordance with TEX 107E, linear shrinkage, when liquid limit is unattainable as defined in TEX 104E. 2. Grade may forth be further designated as Grade 4A, Grade 4B, etc. 2.1.1 Material tolerances. The engineer may accept material if no more than one of the 5 most recent gradation tests has an individual sieve outside the specified limits of the gradation. When target grading is required by the plans, no single failing test may exceed the master grading by more than 5 percentage points on sieves number 4 and larger or 3 percentage points on sieves smaller than number 4. The engineer may accept material if no more than one of the 5 most recent plasticity index tests is outside the specified limit. No single failing test may exceed the allowable limit by more than 2 points. 2.1.2 Material types. Do not use fillers or binders unless approved. Furnish the type specified on the plans in accordance with the following. 2.1.2.1 Type A crushed stone produced and graded from oversized quarried aggregate that originates from a single, naturally occurring source. Do not use gravel or multiple sources. 2.1.2.2 Type B crushed or uncrushed gravel. Blending of 2 or more sources is allowed. 2.1.2.3 Type C crushed gravel with a minimum of 60% of the particles retained on a number 4 sieve with 2 or more crushed faces as determined by TEX 460A, Part I. Blending of 2 or more sources is allowed. 2.1.2.4 Type D Type A material or crushed concrete. Crushed concrete containing gravel will be considered Type D material. Crushed concrete must meet the requirements in Section 247.2.1.3.2, recycled material, including crushed concrete, requirements, and be managed in a way to provide for uniform quality. The engineer may require separate dedicated stockpiles in order to verify compliance. 2.1.2.5 Type E caliche, iron ore, or as otherwise shown on the plans. 2.1.3 Recycled material. Reclaimed asphalt pavement, RAP, and other recycled materials may be used when shown on the plans. Request approval to blend 2 or more sources of recycled materials. 2.1.3.1 Limits on percentage. Do not exceed 20% RAP by weight, when RAP is allowed, unless otherwise shown on the plans. The percentage limitations for other recycled materials will be as shown on the plans. 2.1.3.2 Recycled material, including crushed concrete, requirements. 2.1.3.2.1 Contractor furnished recycled materials. Provide recycled materials, other than RAP, that have a maximum sulfate content of 3000 ppm when tested in accordance with TEX 145E. When the contractor furnishes the recycled materials, including crushed concrete, the final product will be subject to the requirements of Table 1 for the grade specified. Certify compliance with DMS 11000, evaluating and using non-hazardous recyclable materials guidelines, for contractor furnished recycled materials. In addition, Recycled materials must be free from reinforcing steel and other objectionable material and have at most 1.5% deleterious material when tested in accordance with TEX 413A. For RAP, do not exceed a maximum percent loss from decantation of 5% when tested in accordance with TEX 406A. Test RAP without removing the asphalt. 2.1.3.2.2 Department furnished required recycled materials. When the department furnishes and requires the use of recycled materials, unless otherwise shown on the plans, department required recycled material will not be subject to the requirements in Table 1. Contractor furnished materials are subject to the requirements in Table 1 and this item. The final product, blended, will be subject to the requirements in Table 1, and for final product, unblended, 100% department furnished required recycled material, the liquid limit, plasticity index, wet ball mill, and compressive strength is waived. Crush department furnished RAP so that 100% passes the 2 inches sieve. The contractor is responsible for uniformly blending to meet the percentage required. 2.1.3.2.3 Department furnished and allowed recycled materials. When the department furnishes and allows the use of recycled materials or allows the contractor to furnish recycled materials, the final blended product is subject to the requirements of Table 1 and the plans. 2.1.3.3 Recycled material sources. Department-owned recycled material is available to the contractor only when shown on the plans. Return unused department-owned recycled materials to the department stockpile location designated by the engineer unless otherwise shown on the plans. The use of contractor-owned recycled materials is allowed when shown on the plans. Contractor-owned surplus recycled materials remain the property of the contractor. Remove contractor-owned recycled materials from the project and dispose of them in accordance with federal, state, and local regulations before project acceptance. Do not intermingle contractor-owned recycled material with department-owned recycled material unless approved. 2.2 Water. Furnish water free of industrial wastes and other objectionable matter. 2.3 Material sources. Expose the vertical faces of all strata of material proposed for use when non-commercial sources are used. Secure and process the material by successive vertical cuts extending through all exposed strata, when directed. 3. Equipment. Provide machinery, tools, and equipment necessary for proper execution of the work. 3.1 Provide rollers in accordance with Item 210, rolling. Provide proof rollers in accordance with Item 216, proof rolling, when required. 3.2 When ride quality measurement is required, provide a high-speed or lightweight inertial profiler certified at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. Provide equipment certification documentation. Display a current decal on the equipment indicating the certification expiration date. 4. Construction. Construct each layer uniformly, free of loose or segregated areas, and with the required density and moisture content. Provide a smooth surface that conforms to the typical sections, lines, and grades shown on the plans or as directed. Stockpile base material temporarily at an approved location before delivery to the roadway. Build stockpiles in layers no greater than 2 feet thick. Stockpiles must have a total height between 10 and 16 feet unless otherwise approved. After construction and acceptance of the stockpile, loading from the stockpile for delivery is allowed. Load by making successive vertical cuts through the entire depth of the stockpile. Do not add or remove material from temporary stockpiles that require sampling and testing before delivery unless otherwise approved. Charges for additional sampling and testing required as a result of adding or removing material will be deducted from the contractor's estimates. Haul approved flexible base in clean trucks. Deliver the required quantity to each 100 feet station or designated stockpile site American Samoa shown on the plans. Prepare stockpile sites as directed. When delivery is to the 100 feet station, manipulate in accordance with the applicable items. 4.1 Preparation of subgrade or existing base. Remove or scarify existing asphalt concrete pavement in accordance with item 105, removing treated and untreated base and asphalt pavement, when shown on the plans or as directed. Shape the subgrade or existing base to conform to the typical sections shown on the plans or as directed. When new base is required to be mixed with existing base, deliver, place, and spread the new flexible base in the required amount per station. Manipulate and thoroughly mix the new base with existing material to provide a uniform mixture to the specified depth before shaping. Proof roll the roadbed in accordance with item 216, proof rolling, before pulverizing or scarifying when shown on the plans or directed. Correct soft spots as directed. 4.2 Placing. Spread and shape flexible base into a uniform layer with an approved spreader the same day as delivered unless otherwise approved. Construct layers to the thickness shown on the plans. Maintain the shape of the course. Control dust by sprinkling, as directed. Correct or replace segregated areas as directed, at no additional expense to the department. Place successive base courses and finish courses using the same construction methods required for the first course. 4.3 Compaction. Compact using density control unless otherwise shown on the plans. Multiple lifts are permitted when shown on the plans or approved. Bring each layer to the moisture content directed. When necessary, sprinkle the material in accordance with item 204, sprinkling. Begin rolling longitudinally at the sides and proceed towards the center, overlapping on successive trips by at least 1/2 the width of the roller unit. Begin rolling at the low side and progress toward the high side on super elevated curves. Offset alternate trips of the roller. Operate rollers at a speed between 2 and 6 miles per hour as directed. Rework, reco-impact, and refinish material that fails to meet or that loses required moisture, density, stability, or finish requirements before the next course is placed or the project is accepted. Continue work until specification requirements are met. Perform the work at no additional expense to the department. Before final acceptance, the engineer will select the locations of tests and measure the flexible base depth in accordance with TX 140E. Correct areas deficient by more than 1/2 inches in thickness by scarifying, adding material as required, reshaping, reco-impacting, and refinishing at the contractor's expense. 4.3.1 Ordinary compaction. Roll with approved compaction equipment as directed. Correct irregularities, depressions, and weak spots immediately by scarifying the areas affected, adding or removing approved material as required, reshaping, and reco-impacting. 4.3.2 Density control. Compact to at least 100% of the maximum dry density determined by TX 113E, unless otherwise shown on the plans. Maintain moisture during compaction within plus or minus 2 percentage points of the optimum moisture content as determined by TX 113E. Measure the moisture content of the material in accordance with TX 115E or TX 103E during compaction daily and report the results the same day to the engineer, unless otherwise shown on the plans or directed. Do not achieve density by drying the material after compaction. The engineer will determine roadway density and moisture content of completed sections in accordance with TX 115E. The engineer may accept the section if no more than one of the 5 most recent density tests is below the specified density and the failing test is no more than 3 pcf below the specified density. 4.4 Finishing. After completing compaction, clip, skin, or tight blade the surface with a maintainer or subgrade trimmer to a depth of approximately 1/4 inches. Remove loosened material and dispose of it at an approved location. Seal the clipped surface immediately by rolling with a pneumatic tire roller until a smooth surface is attained. Add small increments of water as needed during rolling. Shape and maintain the course and surface in conformity with the typical sections, lines, and grades as shown on the plans or as directed. Correct grade deviations greater than 1/4 inches in 16 feet measured longitudinally or greater than 1/4 inches over the entire width of the cross-section in areas where surfacing is to be placed. Correct by loosening and adding, or removing material. Reshape and recompact in accordance with Section 247.4.3, Compaction. 4.5 Curing. Cure the finished section until the moisture content is at least 2 percentage points below optimum or American Samoa directed before applying the next successive course or prime coat. 4.6 Ride quality. This section applies to the final travel lanes that receive a 1 or 2 course surface treatment for the final surface, unless otherwise shown on the plans. Measure ride quality of the base course after placement of the prime coat and before placement of the surface treatment, unless otherwise approved. Use a certified profiler operator from the department's MPL. When requested, furnish the engineer documentation for the person certified to operate the profiler. Provide all profile measurements to the engineer in electronic data files within 3 days after placement of the prime coat using the format specified in TEX 1001S. The engineer will use department software to evaluate longitudinal profiles to determine areas requiring corrective action. Correct 0.1 mi. Sections having an average international roughness index, IRI, value greater than 100.0 inches per mile to an IRI value of 100.0 inches per mile or less for each wheel path, unless otherwise shown on the plans. Reprofile and correct sections that fail to maintain ride quality until placement of the next course, as directed. Correct reprofiled sections until specification requirements are met, as approved. Perform this work at no additional expense to the department. 5. Measurement. Flexible base will be measured as follows. Flexible base, complete in place. The ton, square yard, or any cubic yard method. Flexible base, roadway delivery. The ton or any cubic yard method. Flexible base, stockpile delivery. The ton, cubic yard in vehicle, or cubic yard in stockpile. Measurement by the cubic yard in final position and square yard is a plan's quantity measurement. The quantity to be paid for is the quantity shown in the proposal unless modified by Article 9.2, Plan's quantity measurement. Additional measurements or calculations will be made if adjustments of quantities are required. Measurement is further defined for payment as follows. 5.1 Cubic yard in vehicle. By the cubic yard in vehicles of uniform capacity at the point of delivery. 5.2 Cubic yard in stockpile. By the cubic yard in the final stockpile position by the method of average end areas. 5.3 Cubic yard in final position. By the cubic yard in the completed and accepted final position. The volume of base course is computed in place by the method of average end areas between the original subgrade or existing base surfaces and the lines, grades, and slopes of the accepted base course as shown on the plans. 5.4 Square yard. By the square yard of surface area in the completed and accepted final position. The surface area of the base course is based on the width of flexible base as shown on the plans. 5.5 Ton. By the ton of dry weight in vehicles as delivered. The dry weight is determined by deducting the weight of the moisture in the material at the time of weighing from the gross weight of the material. The engineer will determine the moisture content in the material in accordance with TEX 103E from samples taken at the time of weighing. When material is measured in trucks, the weight of the material will be determined on certified scales, or the contractor must provide a set of standard platform truck scales at a location approved by the engineer. Scales must conform to the requirements of Item 520, Weighing and Measuring Equipment. 6. Payment. The work performed and materials furnished in accordance with this item and measured as provided under measurement will be paid for at the unit price bid for the types of work shown below. No additional payment will be made for thickness or width exceeding that shown on the typical section or provided on the plans for cubic yard in the final position or square yard measurement. Sprinkling and rolling, except proof rolling, will not be paid for directly but will be subsidiary to this item unless otherwise shown on the plans. When proof rolling is shown on the plans or directed, it will be paid for in accordance with Item 216, Proof rolling. Where subgrade is constructed under this contract, correction of soft spots in the subgrade will be at the contractor's expense. Where subgrade is not constructed under this contract, correction of soft spots in the subgrade will be paid in accordance with pertinent items or Article 4.4, changes in the work. 6.1 Flexible base, complete in place. Payment will be made for the type and grade specified. For cubic yard measurement, in vehicle, in stockpile, or in final position will be specified. For square yard measurement, a depth will be specified. This price is full compensation for furnishing materials, temporary stockpiling, assistance provided in stockpile sampling and operations to level stockpiles for measurement, loading, hauling, delivery of materials, spreading, belating, mixing, shaping, placing, compacting, reworking, finishing, correcting locations where thickness is deficient, curing, furnishing scales and labor for weighing and measuring, and equipment, labor, tools, and incidentals. 6.2 Flexible base, roadway delivery. Payment will be made for the type and grade specified. For cubic yard measurement, in vehicle, in stockpile, or in final position will be specified. The unit price bid will not include processing at the roadway. This price is full compensation for furnishing materials, temporary stockpiling, assistance provided in stockpile sampling and operations to level stockpiles for measurement, loading, hauling, delivery of materials, furnishing scales and labor for weighing and measuring, and equipment, labor, tools, and incidentals. 6.3 Flexible base, stockpile delivery. Payment will be made for the type and grade specified. For cubic yard measurement, in vehicle or in stockpile will be specified. The unit price bid will not include processing at the roadway. This price is full compensation for furnishing and disposing of materials, preparing the stockpile area, temporary or permanent stockpiling, assistance provided in stockpile sampling and operations to level stockpiles for measurement, loading, hauling, delivery of materials to the stockpile, furnishing scales and labor for weighing and measuring, and equipment, labor, tools, and incidentals.